Hi there. It's a beautiful day here in northern Wisconsin. Welcome to Dynamic Faith of the Church, Introduction to the History of Christianity, 1500. I'm John Paul, and look forward to working with you this semester. I hope each of you can put together a similar video just by way of introduction, who you are, why you're in this class, where you see your study of history connecting to your vocation. I'm a pastor as well as a professor. I'm currently serving as a minister of faith formation and community engagement at Union Congregational United Church of Christ in Green Bay. It's a big historic congregation founded in 1836, which means it's the longest continually worshiping congregation in the state of Wisconsin. It was a congregation that was riding the Underground Railroad in the 19th century, very active in women's suffrage in the early 20th century, and continues to be what I call a startup church, that is engaged in starting up social ministry organizations and then kind of setting them loose to serve civil society. So it's been a great place for me. I'm now licensed as pastor in the UCC, so I can celebrate the sacraments and the full range of ministerial service. It's just been great to be back in parish ministry. I'm also an author. I have a book coming out in September entitled Fethullah Gulen, A Life of Hizmet. Fethullah Gulen is a Turkish imam living in the Poconos, been there since 1999. This book is the result of 7 years of research, dozens of interviews with people close to him, and interviews with him as well. He's a controversial figure, been called a terrorist by the Turkish government, but in my research and based on the evidence that I uncovered, he's very much in the mold of Mohandas Gandhi as a peacemaker, but been vilified by the powers and principalities currently in control of the government of Turkey. I want to talk a little bit about the syllabus, the expectations for the course, in addition to letting you know who I am. I'm here in Wisconsin primarily because my parents, who are 86 and 82, are here. I wanted to be here with them in their waning years. My wife Lisa was willing to come along. She loved Philadelphia, as did I, and we miss our friends and we miss the city a great deal. Although I still get back often for faculty meetings and to advise students and to see friends. Our daughter also lives there. We have two sons who are one of them's here in Appleton, and he has two sons, so I have two grandsons who are here, which is just a joy. And then our other son lives up in Juneau, Alaska, but travels frequently and is here often as well. So, family, absolutely crucial. To the syllabus then, say a few things about the work that we're going to be doing together this semester. My teaching methodology or my pedagogy has always been deeply informed by that of Paulo Freire in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which focuses on awakening people to whatever the content it is that you happen to be studying. It's not about communicating information, so you're not going to hear me lecture very often, but much more about acquainting yourselves with the debates, the dilemmas that our ancestors in the faith lived with and negotiated over the course of 1500 years. It's an impossible task, but awakening to how we share in similar dilemmas and challenges, and how we also have the capacity then to shape the tradition. And that is a heavy task, and yet we can stand on the shoulders of some significant, flawed, but faithful people we'll be studying over the course of the semester. I just love this topic. It is really the heart of my preparation in my PhD program at the University of Chicago Divinity School. So I'm delighted to be able to work with you on it. Our primary work will be through discussion. It's a little different online than it is face-to-face, but it can still be really, really rich. And what I like about online discussion is that everybody must participate. It's a requirement for the course. And all learning styles can be included. I hope there will be good, rich engagement with the readings and some thoughtful and provocative conversations over the course of our weeks together. So the primary work of the course is done through weekly reading response papers, and then responses to those papers that you are able to offer. So in the discussions, everyone can read everybody else's papers and respond to them. And my general rule of thumb is that you read at least and respond to at least 3 of your peers' works. But in my experience, you'll probably want to read and perhaps respond to many more. In this version of learning management software in Canvas, there is also, borrowed from Facebook, a like function that you can add. So if you particularly like someone's essay, respond. And don't feel afraid also to offer critique. As if we were in a classroom together, there are going to be differences. And differences are something that I welcome in conversation. So I hope we can have some good civil debates. Be reasoned, be gentle and compassionate, but also be critical. So I hope we can discover some of the differences among us and between us through the course of our online discussions. There are 4 primary learning elements that you'll be responsible for, you'll be graded on. The first one would be the reading responses. There are 10 of them over the course of the semester. Second will be 2 somewhat longer papers, 5 to 7 pages, that I call synthesis papers. One is due in October and the other in November, I believe. So, and then the last component is a final project, and lots of different possibilities there, from a sermon to an adult forum series on a particular topic in the history of Christianity to 1500, particular individuals, a standard research paper on a question that's of interest to you, video, art, music. In other words, be creative. My hope really is that through our study together, our ancestors in the faith will come alive for us, both in their frailties and in their failings, but also in their faithfulness. And I just think there's an awful lot of resource. There are many resources for parish ministry and for public leadership in the history of Christianity to 1500. Our texts, we have 4. The primary one, right here, Diarmuid MacCulloch, Christianity, the First 3,000 Years. It's a big, fat book, but we're only reading the first 600 pages of it or so. And it's dense, but it's also witty, and I find it really quite funny. Last semester when I taught this course was 54 students, which was almost impossible. There was a weekly quiz on the reading material. There may still be something like that that I throw in at various junctures, especially if my sense is the reading has been skimmed rather than digested. So I really want you to dig into MacCulloch. There are YouTube videos available of a PBS series that, not PBS, BBC series that MacCulloch did. I think it's 6 episodes, in which he basically covers the history that he documented in this huge book that was widely and favorably reviewed by the New York Times, LA Times, London Times, etc. I mean, it's sort of the gold standard in the history of Christianity these days. So that's our primary text. Secondarily, supplementing it from a very different point of view or perspective is a book edited by Dennis Jantz, A People's History of Christianity. As any of you who have studied history know, for years the history has been great men, and I do mean men, and ideas. And increasingly, through the work of new social historians and cultural historians, we've been trying to turn that upside down and focus more on everyday folk and the challenges that they faced and how they make history, as well in ways that aren't documented as obviously as the great public figures might have been. But Jantz's book is a collection of essays, some of them really eye-opening, that can awaken us to how Christianity both grew and then changed over time as well, because the fact of the matter is the faith has been continually transforming as the Holy Spirit works, to speak theologically for a minute. Two other supplemental texts, but required. One of them is Averil Cameron, Byzantine Christianity. She is a professor at Oxford and an expert in this field, and has somehow managed to distill almost a millennium into, how many pages? Barely 100. And I think it's just really good, and it's very important, to my mind, for Western Christians in particular, to understand the history of Byzantium as this sort of bridge between West and East, as Turkey continues to be in many ways today. And then Janina Ramirez, Julian of Norwich, who's a fascinating 14th century figure. Also, and Janina Ramirez is also, she's a professor at Oxford as well. So those are two supplemental texts, just a little deeper dive into some of one stream of our ancestors' work in Byzantium, and then one particularly prominent individual, Julian of Norwich. I'll leave it at that. The first reading response paper is due by Friday, August 31st, and every paper is due generally on Friday at the end of the week by midnight. And then my standard pattern, my general pattern will be to read them on Monday or Tuesday of the week following. Generally, my schedule goes like this. Monday will be my online dedicated class day, and I encourage you to do the same. That is to have a day or portion of a day that you set aside just as if you were sitting in the classroom. That is, 3 hours, 4 hours, however long it takes. That is your study and online time for the history of Christianity to 1500. Mine's going to be on Mondays, usually. First week is a little odd because it's Labor Day weekend, and it's Labor Day weekend, so I'll probably be more likely to get to the papers on Tuesday. But as a rule, it'll be Monday. And first one is kind of an overview question, takes up the question of Christianity and intolerance. And as you may know, my previous book was on the history of religion and violence in America, focused especially in the ways that religion has stoked violence along the lines of age, race, and gender. And so we dive into that kind of question immediately. How have Christians been responsible for intolerance over time, and especially in its early years? And in addition to reading McCulloch's introduction, which is kind of an overview, also get into the first chapter of Jantz, Richard Horsley, who's a fine, fine scholar, Jesus Movements and the Renewal of Israel, and then a primary source document. I'll usually try to include a primary source document of some kind in each week's reading, almost in every week. And in this one, it's the Gospel according to Mary, which is fragmentary, but just really interesting on many levels. So off we go. Please don't hesitate to be in touch with any questions you might have. I'm readily available on email. I'm on it every day. I'm also available by cell phone. Don't hesitate to use it. 610-909-7107. It's on the syllabus as well. And please respect business hours. Generally, is when I will take calls. That would be between roughly 9 a.m. And 5:36 p.m. Although I realize some of you are also working, and so if you do call in the evenings, generally check. If you're going to do that, check with me by way of an email beforehand. So look forward to learning with you this semester. Canvas is new to me. I'm sure there are going to be some glitches. I'm supposed to have a talk with Alex today, but she is not feeling well, so I'm going to be learning it as we go, as all of you are. But I hope to be a good guide for you this semester as we learn together the history of Christianity 1500. Thanks much, and peace.